Good morning, good evening to all. Welcome to this session. I'm very much happy to onboard you all for our very first day, first session in transportation management. Okay, so let's get into the very first session of transportation management. Let's talk about. And with that, let's talk about something called as some basic essential terms which are required and very much essential before you get into TM system. Now, the very first term that I would like to ask you guys is your understanding. Okay, it is not something that you need to be pro enough on that. I need your basic understanding on those terms. Okay, so that we can have that clarity and we can sync it across with you. Now, the very first term is landed cost. Now, any idea what this landed cost would mean to you guys? Uh, let's make it more interactive. Okay, so let's talk about some um, detailing. Okay, so I'll talk about this definition, so don't worry. Now there is something called as landed cost. So landed cost is basically the total cost that you are incurring on a product to get it delivered to the end user. Now this landed cost generally is accounted from the point of view of transportation cost. Sometimes it is considered, but it is not the transportation cost which is only considered as part of your landed cost. Okay, it is the entire and overall cost that you are incurring on that particular product to get it delivered to the end user. It includes your baggage cost, scanning cost, document fees. Transportation cost definitely is one of the major component altogether, but along with that you have lot many other costs which will be levied on your relevant product to actually sum it up to an overall cost which will be essential for identifying how is the overall cost that you are incurring on that particular product to get it delivered. Okay, so that is basically referred as landed cost. Now, let's talk about another term called a shipper and a consignee. Now, any idea or close relevance to what you would be understanding with term called a shipper and a consignee? Maybe Dana? Okay, okay. Who ships the goods to the product? Okay. Exporter, consignee receives the good. Okay. Shipper who ships the goods. Okay. Consignee receives the goods. Kamalpreet, okay. Okay. Case process. So basically we are pretty much in sync. So when you talk about shipper, shipper is basically something or somebody who is actually shipping out the goods. Now the shipping out the goods means when you are shipping the goods, actually sending the goods, these are basically called as the shipper. And consignee is basically the one who is receiving the goods altogether. And very simple example to understand is because most of the time we have ordered something from Amazon. We have used Amazon as a platform. Most common and simple example would be, suppose if I'm ordering something from Amazon for my brother who is living in Mumbai. Now in this case, who is going to be the shipper and who is going to be the consignee over here? Suppose I am ordering something from Amazon for my brother who is living in Chennai or maybe Mumbai. In this example, who is going to be the shipper? Okay, brother is the shipper. Okay, Bhushan. And consignee? Okay, Kamal Preet is saying, okay, shipper is Amazon, Consignee is your brother. Okay. 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 Okay, brother is a consignee. Okay, fine. So people are pretty much getting into the similar sign. Who ships the goods? Consignee. Okay. Another thought. Okay. So that's fine. So let's take a very simple and live platform as an example. Very simple stuff. We might have used this particular platform. Suppose I want to buy something. Okay, I'm just getting into any. Okay. This is just for your real life, real time exposure and understanding so that you get to understand the real instance. What is a shipper and what is a consignee? While ordering something from Amazon, you might have seen at least this window where you have actually gone through the detailing of that particular product, understood what this product and how much it is offered for, the complete terms and condition altogether. But alongside with this, there is one more section that you should be considering. Always make a note that actually you are going with an understanding with these terms. Do you see this? Ships from Amazon. Yeah. When you see this ships as Amazon, that means it is actually Amazon which is shipping the goods over this place. So who is a shipper? Shipper is neither me nor anybody else. Anyone or someone who actually ships the product or sends the product. In this case of our example of this particular earphones, you have Amazon which is doing that job, and hence Amazon is the shipper. Not every time Amazon is going to be the shipper. Okay, it could have been the case sometimes some products when you search in Amazon, you would see sold by and shipped from party are same. That is this retailer. Because ultimately, from whom I'm buying this product? I'm buying this product from this entity because ultimately Amazon is a platform where buyer and sellers meet altogether. Similar kind of stuff. Maybe the retail buyers over here. And hence, sometimes this ClickTech Retail Private Limited could become a shipper as well. In case if he is shipping the product. Now there could have been a connection between this company and Amazon that okay, Amazon says okay, give me that particular part of shipment, you take care of the goods altogether. So that is all fine, which is between these two entities. But in the real time, the one who actually ships is basically is called as shipper. It could be a seller as well. If he is selling the goods and he is also the one responsible for shipping the goods, he could be the shipper as well. But ultimately, we are more focused from the point of view of who is shipping and who is receiving. So that is the reason you have a shipper and a consignee. So I think from the consignee point of view, most of you were pretty much on the right side. So if I am actually uh, uh, shipping out something for my brother, definitely my brother is the consignee. That is for true. But shipper is something which is more of a uh, confused term in most of the places, most of the times with most of the people. So that's the reason you should be aware that the one who actually ships, if Amazon is shipping the goods, Amazon is the shipper. If you are shipping the goods, you are the shipper. If it is being done by this guy is the shipper. Able to get through with that? So it purely depends who is actually is your shipper and who is your consignee. Okay. So bottom line, the one who ships is the shipper. The one who receives is the consignee. Okay. Now I can see some comments probably which are considered from the point of view of third party stuff. I'll come to that. Now, any idea what this carrier would mean to you? Or what kind of understanding you might have heard or thought about with by hearing this term as carrier? What comes to your mind? Okay, who carries the goods? Any other? Okay, KS Prasad is saying that probably carrier, for example, Blue Dart. Okay, good one. Okay, LSP. Okay, a new term being introduced. Sandeep, the one who carries the goods from source to destination point. Very true. Now, let's come down to is the transporter who carries the goods either by sea, road, air. That's an L. Who transport the goods? Very true. So basically, I am pretty much aligned with your responses. So because a couple of responses were more on a third party and LSP, let's talk about those. Because when I say a carrier, carrier basically means the one who carries the goods, as simple as what the name suggests. No ifs and buts. Carrier means the one who carries the goods. Now it can be if you are carrying the goods, you are the carrier in that case. If a truck is carrying the goods, truck is a carrier. Okay. If a train is carrying the goods, train is a carrier. A plane is carrying a goods, a plane is a carrier. So anybody, anyone, someone who is carrying the goods is a carrier for goods. Now, what is an LSP? That is where we'll come down probably over in another term. Now, most of the times it gets confused with most of the people that when I say carrier, probably people think about a blue dart because that is what we have seen because those small tempos probably you have visiting nearby to your house, you have that blue dart which is written over there. Now, 3PLs basically are not the carriers. Okay, let me take a very simple example to understand that part. Carrier basically someone who carries the goods. Okay, 3PLs are basically those which acts as the logistics partner. Now, first of all, to understand the logistics partner, I would like to understand what is your understanding on the term transportation and the term logistics. Because both of these two terms are taken in a similar way, similar direction, similar point of understanding. So, I would like to understand like what is your understanding on this term called as transportation and the logistics. What is transportation? Okay. Kamal Preet is saying it is medium. That's good. And what is logistics? Or it is one and the same? Just we say it in a different way. So it is different, same, but what comes to you? Kale Prasad is saying that probably logistics is transportation is one of the process within this logistics. Okay. And what would you describe then as logistics? Like, do you have multiple processes over there? And if yes, then what kind of processes? Managing the transportation. Okay, that's Kamalpreet. That's good point. Anything else that can come to you guys? Okay, that's good. So let's talk about something which is called as transportation. Now, when you talk about the transportation is basically simple mechanism to transport or move the product from one place to another place altogether, which is what I think Kamalpreet said as well. Transportation is nothing but a mechanism or a process where I simply am transporting a goods from one place to another place by carrying the goods. So when you talk about a transportation, it is a very limited scope job that you do. You start your journey, you end your journey, the job is done, things are done. For example, I am pretty much picking you as a person to pick up the goods from my door and deliver the goods to my friend's house, and that is your job you are doing in. So this particular process basically will be referred as transportation process, where a carrier is carrying the goods from point A to point B and things are being completed. So whenever a carrier carries a goods from point A to point B, this entire process basically is termed as transportation process. Whereas when you talk about the logistics process, as one of you, I think it is Sandeep, pretty much says, and K.S. Prasad as well, that logistics is nothing but an overall multiple processes which are involved over here. And transportation is one of the part of that particular process. For example, let's talk about logistics. Now, when you say a term logistics, it is not only transportation which comes into picture. It comes up with packaging, it comes up with labeling, it comes up with warehousing, security, clearances, taxations, duties, all those things which pretty much can be levied as part of your business processes. All these comes as part of your logistics management companies only. So whenever you say that I'm talking about a logistics company, it basically is incorporating a lot many different processes. When I say different processes means different functions which they would be doing altogether. Whereas transportation is one of the part of the function that they would be doing in. So it entirely talks about complete overall end-to-end management of a transportation, because I'm not only transporting my goods from point A to B, which is a transportation, but I am also managing that particular transportation by contacting the packaging guy, by contacting the labeling guy, scanning through document clearances, government fees, government scanning, clearances, and import and export duties, probably in case if it is an international shipment. So entire movement I'm taking care of so that I can easily and deliver that goods from point A to point B. And that is the basic purpose of transportation. So when I say transportation, it is moreover aligned with the carrier based businesses where you have a simple notation where you're simply moving from one place to another place. Whereas logistics is more of an overall process a bigger umbrella which contains multiple processes where transportation also is one of the part of that particular process in the logistics. And when we talk about any sort of examples, because I see one of the example over there was there as blue dart. So carrier is never a blue dart. Okay. Now, what is this blue dart then? All these companies that you might have heard about, like DHL, Blue Dart, FedEx, Panalpina, UPS, all these are different logistics companies. Different logistics companies. Okay. So what these logistics companies do, so whenever you are reaching out to these shippers, okay, they basically reach out to these 3PL companies, which in turn will be reaching out to these carriers only, because these are not the people who are transporting, these are the people who are managing the transportation. And hence 3PL is a different world altogether, and transportation, that is carrier, is a different world altogether. So when you say I'm reaching out to a DHL guy or a 3PL guy or a Blue Dart guy, you're not reaching out to the carrier. You are actually reaching out to the 3PL guy only, who is actually intending to manage your transportation altogether. So all these like DHL, Blue Dart, FedEx, okay, First Light, basically these all are termed as 3PL companies. Now I'll come to that particular part where you guys are getting confused it as a carrier. So you have a 3PL, you call it as third party logistics. You have LSP, which you call it as logistics service provider, or else you can call them as freight forwarders, basically because these are the ones who are actually forwarding the freight to the relevant carrier, because they are not the one who are actually transporting. So they actually reach out to the relevant carrier to make sure that your goods are transported. Able to get through with what is a carrier and what is a 3PL? Yeah. Okay, that's good. Now there could be a possibility that me as a DHL, as a 3PL company, I become big altogether, or I do have the same 3PL company. So this 3PL company can get into the business of carrier as well. Now this transition does not mean that pretty much that DHL is a carrier, which most of us basically feel that way, because if you see, you might have seen DHL planes. If not, maybe DHL also have its own carrier planes. Or maybe you might have seen all these big companies, which is nothing but, I'm talking about, these are the broking companies, or maybe you can term it as a middleman altogether who is trying to manage your shipment altogether. So these all have own, sometimes own carriers as well. Now, owning a carrier is a different stuff and different line of business altogether, which is different from their main course of business. That is acting as an aggregator. Okay. So generally, when you talk about getting into this business, it is a total different aspect altogether if a company wishes to get into this carrier segment altogether. But that does not mean that they are actually the carrier. Their basic bread and butter still lies with 3PL business, where they are collating and consolidating and aggregating the goods from multiple shippers and actually going ahead with the relevant career. Okay. So that is how you basically go further and define your something called as carrier and a shipper. So most of the time people get confused with carrier and 3PL. Both are the same stuff, but carrier is totally a different stuff. LSP or 3PL is totally is a different kind of stuff altogether. Okay. Now let's take a very simple example of a common man. So maybe like suppose I want to send some a letter, or maybe I would like to send uh, some gift or something. Maybe it's a letter maybe to my brother who is living in Mumbai. So let's take a very simple example to understand that part. So what is a common step? What is a common behavior that you as a person would be doing as part of your um, sending a letter? Suppose maybe you're not from a logistics background, you are a very common layman with a common understanding what is being told to you and how do you proceed. So when I say that you need to send a letter to your brother, what would be your basic common steps? What would you do? Okay, going to the courier, fine. Okay, book a parcel, that is also fine because we've been taught that way, so that is true, very correct. Okay, any last answer maybe? Okay. So the basic understanding says, because that is what is being told to us, that probably if I want to send some letter or something to my brother who is living in Mumbai, so the basic thing is you go to your nearest courier store and you hand over your package to them or your letter to them. They will take care of the further stuffs, basically. So that is the basic stuff that we have been taught with. But if you now understand, like, because when I am reaching out to this courier guy or a 3PL guy, ultimately he is not the one who is actually transporting the goods. If you make a call, this guy is simply acting as an intermediary or as a intermediate broker for me to make sure he connects me with the right kind of a carrier. So is it a wise option to really go to that particular courier person, or I can reach out to that carrier altogether? So what should I be doing? Suppose if I now got an understanding that, okay, this guy is simply collating and aggregating the goods, and actually someone which is called as carrier, he's doing that transportation. So why should I not be reaching out to the carrier directly? Because now I understood that carrier is the one who carries the goods. So why I should be still be looking to this 3PL guy like DHL, FedEx, all these people, still to depend upon them. Okay, so parcel is very small. Okay. Planning and execution varies complicated. Okay. Let's take a very simple example. Maybe I am simply meant to transport within a city or very nearby to the city. It is just next to within 50 kilometers, maybe if you say. Let's suppose that. I'm not transporting it to US to India, suppose. Keep it simple. Okay, responsibility. Okay, good. In case of any issue, okay, you can also reach out to this carrier as well. That's not a problem. They have their own website. Suppose, let me give you the equal opportunity. Suppose carrier also has their own website, reach point, and probably everything is there, like your courier company. Good, good. I'm trying to think, but okay, that's good. Good attempt altogether. So that's very accessibility. Okay, very true. LSP is nearest. And that is also good. Depends upon volume. Correct. So the most important thing is you can easily reach the 3PL guy. Have you ever seen a carrier's office nearby to you? Because if ultimately carrier is the one who is actually carrying the goods, they should have opened their office everywhere around the globe. But we don't see these trucks offices or ships offices or airplanes offices nearby to us. We see these DHLs or FedEx, Blue Darts offices nearby to us, or these courier companies, whatever you're using in, right? Because if a carrier is that important and carrier is the one who is transporting the goods, why don't I have carrier's office nearby to us? It is one of the reason that we actually trust on our nearby and reachable business altogether. And why carrier does not open offices everywhere around the globe? Because it is not their basic responsibility altogether. Because when at early point of time the transportation started, they also try to reach out to the public altogether, just like what these DHL FedEx offices are there. But that ultimately is totally is a different line of business altogether. Because in that case, I need to play a role of an aggregator as well, because I'm collecting the goods from multiple people. And ultimately, suppose I am a shipping company, for example, I am pretty much working over one coast to another coast to deliver the goods. I need to come down to the coast location as well, because that is my main job, to carry the goods. So ultimately, I will be hampering one more additional process by adding this aggregator job also to my line. And that's the reason pretty much at early point of time when they started with behaving as a 3PL, they left over as a 3PL. They focused only on acting as a carrier. So they pretty much, if I talk about as a ocean transportation, these carrier companies which are meant to carry the goods from one coast to another coast, they focus only on going in from one coast to another coast. So you will have such kind of offices either of the coasts that you are having with. And that's the reason carriers are more entitled to work only from that point to next point only. And that is a very basic reason that you would see your trucks will not be roaming around altogether in your city. There will be a separate section, separate area where all the trucks will be, you know, consolidating the goods at the one area of your location only. You'll not have that tempo floating around everywhere. It is some specific area where all these people will be there. Because ultimately carriers are the one which will be carrying the goods. So either you reach to the carrier or 3PL reaches to the carrier. Ultimately, the business has to be done by either of these two only. So whether you reach out to the carrier or 3PL reaches out to the carrier, ultimately carrier will be getting the business. So that is the reason they are full sure secured that if somebody wants to move the goods, they will have to come down to us. And that's the reason they have cut short this part of journey to leave over for rest of the people to take over. And that's the reason these companies have mushroomed a lot, because they see an opportunity over this place. Because a common man cannot go to the seashore and get it delivered, or to airport, air base altogether. And that's the reason they act as an aggregator over here, and hence they are more reachable to the end user or the retail user. Second thing, which Sandeep rightly said, is depending upon the volume of the goods. Suppose I am pretty much learned enough and I got to understand that, okay, carrier is the one who is transporting the goods, but I still have one letter. Do I will be going to the seashore just because I need to save some bucks over here? I'm reaching out to the seashore pretty much to reach out to the carrier to just to send out one letter? No, right? It would be wasting my time as well, money as well. And altogether, even if I reach out to this particular carrier, he might not be booking this entire ship, entire container altogether with respect to my one letter. So ultimately, volume definitely plays a better role. Why? Because if not you, somebody else will be giving them the volume altogether, and they will be offering a better rate to them. So when you get into this business, definitely it comes down with multiple factors, like the cost that you might be using in, because ultimately it will be more costlier to you than paying some smaller chunk of bucks over here. Maybe you mean I might need to pay 10 rupees extra over here. That is fine, but that will do your job. Save your time, save your efforts altogether, and it is moreover more accessible to you. However, these carriers are also accessible, but it is the sense of accessibility is pretty much lower over this place than that you see over this place. And that is one of the reason these people have mushroomed a lot, and you see lot many 3PL companies. However, the carrier companies are still low in that segment, in every segment. But you see these integrators coming into picture altogether. And that is the reason, basic reason, I would still, even after so much evolution in transportation, I would still reach out to these 3PLs instead of a carrier. Now, if you have a bulk transportation, if you are a manufacturer altogether, you are manufacturing some very bulk materials like engines and everything, you may skip this guy and probably you can reach out to this carrier altogether from your end. But again, those are very few companies which are, shipping in very large numbers altogether. So that's the reason for a regular retail customer like us, we actually reach out to this 3PL altogether than reaching out to the carrier. Now, let's come back to our example again. Suppose I need to send some letter to my brother who is living in Mumbai. So that is the reason I would not reach out to this carrier directly, because it will be time consuming for me. So what I would do is, as we are guided by our elders, that okay, you reach out to this some courier person who would do that job for you. So what I would do is, I, who is trying to send out the goods, I'll be called as a shipper in that case. I'll be reaching out to this 3PL entity, like suppose DHL or Blue Dart or anybody. I'll reach out to them and I'll hand over the goods to them. Okay. So when I hand over the goods, definitely he'll be making an entry, something. I need to take my goods from Delhi to Mumbai, so and so things. And pretty much he will be handing over you a certain slip. That slip basically is nothing but a proof that you are handing over the goods to your DHL guy. Okay, let's take it as that way. Okay. The DHL guy has offered you and given you a slip that contains complete detailing, A to B, so much grams of letter, blah blah details, dimensions, like estimated timeline, and it also contains a unique tracking number altogether, so that you can go back to your home and probably track your goods on the DHL website. When you ping this particular tracking reference number, you can search your goods. So that is the only stuff that you do from your end, right? Now, once that is done, you come back with that particular receipt. That receipt is basically referred as house bill of lading. Now, somewhere, sometimes you might have heard about this term called as bill of lading. Have you guys ever heard about bill of lading or house bill of lading sometimes? Yes. Bill of lading or house bill of lading? Okay. It is also written and mentioned as bill of lading. Okay. Bill of lading. Okay. And this HBL is house bill of lading. So what is this bill of lading or house bill of lading? Okay, so I think bill of lading as people have more heard about. So what is this bill of lading that you guys has been hearing about? Any thoughts? What is this bill of lading? What it is? It's a contract document. Okay, Majid, good to hear you. Proof of receipt. Good. Liner, HB freight forward. Okay, okay, okay. With packing list. Very correct, Majid. So coming down with bill of lading. Bill of lading basically is referred from the context when you are working over here in this case. Okay. So when I say I'm talking about something called as bill of lading, it is basically referred from the context when a shipper actually is interacting to the carrier directly, and this particular bill of lading is nothing but an official contract which helps the carrier enabled to take care of the transportation at the easy go, which includes, yes, as Bhushan said, which includes complete detailing of all the goods which are being there for the transportation purpose. It is a kind of a legal contract that you have, which makes sure and authorize the carrier to move the goods from one place to another place. Okay, so that gives a legal binding to that particular carrier to make sure that the goods are being carried. Now, with respect to that, you would only see this thing in this particular kind of case. Whenever you hear bill of lading, that means a shipper is interacting to the carrier directly. Now, there is also something called as house bill of lading altogether. This house bill of lading is something which is the specific case which you would see in a 3PL kind of a case. 3PL case or an LSP case means where you have your transportation being carried and taken care by this 3PL guy. Okay. So in such cases, when DHL issues a receipt to you for the tracking of the goods as a receipt that you are having, that receipt is basically called as house bill of lading, and the number which is printed on that particular HBL receipt is basically referred as house bill of lading number, which you use it as a tracking reference as well. Okay. Yes. So you do have your HBL and BOL definitely for different kind of cases for every shipment that you will be having. So whenever you receive some shipment altogether, when you're trying to send out something, that receipt is nothing but is referred as house bill of lading only. In case if it is the first case, you will be calling it as bill of lading. Okay. So the basic difference only lies with the kind of parameters that you have it on over here. It is more a carrier oriented document, but this is more of a customer oriented document. Okay, because it is pertaining more related and informational to the carrier point of view, where carrier is actually moving the goods. So it contains similar sort of information as well. So you will have those goods information in this document. In this document also you'll have the goods information only, but it will be more aligned from the context of that particular shipper altogether, which will be making more informational from his point of view. Whereas this document is more focused on the carrier based information which a carrier would need as part of his transportation. Any approvals are there, so that will also be listed over there. Any ifs and buts are there, just like somebody mentioned that custom clearances are there. Now if that is needed probably to that carrier, maybe that is something which will be there, but maybe custom clearances this guy don't need to have it an understanding of. Maybe for me as an end user, it is not necessary for me to understand whether custom clearance is done or not, right? So it is simple for me to understand what is relevant for me. So DHL only gives it to you what is relevant for me in that particular HPL, unlike the detailing which you see additional over here, which is more aligned from the carrier point of view. Okay, but overall they contain the similar information with respect to a product only which is being transported. Same thing goes over here as well. Understood that, Kamalpreet? Okay. Now, suppose you handed over your goods and DHL is having your goods, you come back with a receipt. That's all done. And when you talk about this DHL guy, DHL which is holding the goods, now ultimately this DHL guy, we are aware that he is an LSP, that is logistics service provider. He's simply acting as an aggregator or as middle person to facilitate the services of the transportation. So ultimately, he is not the one who is going to transport. That is for sure clear. So what he would be doing is he would be reaching out to his own sources to identify and come back with the best carrier which can move the goods from Delhi to Mumbai. And it is not only your letter which will be in that radar list, it will be all those set of goods which are supposed to go from Delhi to Mumbai. And that's the reason you would have something over this place where when just like a shipper hands over to DHL, DHL issues a HBL. In the similar manner, when DHL hands over the goods to the carrier, carrier also issues one receipt kind of stuff, which is called as master bill of lading receipt. This master bill of lading receipt is nothing but a kind of a proof which carrier gives it to DHL that okay, yes, you have given a goods to me, I'll take care of the goods. So just like you from your HBL number, you track the goods in the DHL website, DHL guy also get into the carrier website to track their goods with the help of your MBL reference number only. Okay, or whatever the mechanism that they have established to connect with the carrier to track the goods. Nowadays, you might have seen a lot many carriers are there with the good market reachability. Okay, so that is the basic reasoning that you would be having, and most likely when you talk about such kind of stuff, it is basically termed as your HPL and MBL only. So that's the same stuff that you would see over this place. Maybe you can have a look and let me know in case if you have any queries before we move ahead. Okay, let's proceed further. Now let's talk about something called as Incoterm. Now, Incoterms are something that you might have heard about as well, that there is something called as DDP, FOB, XWorks, something like that. Okay, so let's talk about that. Correct, FOB. So, but most likely, when you talk about Incoterms are basically abbreviated terms of international commercial terms. Okay, these international commercial terms are actually defined and designed by another international agency, which is called as ICC, that is International Chamber of Commerce. International Chamber of Commerce are designed and defined lot many things in the transportation arena, and Incoterms are one of them. They are the one who are primarily responsible for uh, all the international transactions which are happening. Just like you have a Chamber of Commerce for in every other country, city, a group of commercial people probably there. So the similar kind of International Chamber of Commerce section is there, which makes sure that entire commercial activities which are there meant for the transportation are in line, and no one is getting taking leverage and benefiting in a bad way. So they have come up with one term called as incoterms. These incoterms, there are 11 incoterms which are there defined and given by ICC, and these are basically meant to understand and help you in understanding who is going to pay for what all are the services which are included in your transportation. And that's the basic fundamental aspect that you see in this particular chart as well. And this is a chart which keeps on revising on an annual basis. Okay, so in case suppose something new comes up, like suppose AI is there coming into the market right now. And if a company is using AI as one of the services, maybe in their transportation processes, so definitely who will be paying for that particular AI service? Because somebody has to pay. Either buyer pays or seller pays. And that's the reason you would have this particular kind of chart which will be there, which will be included for all the services. There are only some of the services which I have listed over here. You have plenty amount of services which are there. And you basically come down with that mapping over here, and you come with a common resolution that okay, this is something which you will be paying, this is something which is I'll be paying. Okay, so it's simply, and it is not something you would be defining as a TM consultant or any business consultant. It is more aligned from the perspective of the business point of view altogether. So it is simply, that's the reason you do not go and you define that particular part. Today suppose I am going to use GDP, or tomorrow suppose I am going to use FOB. You cannot go it in that way, because it is the business which comes down with a final conclusion that what all are the list of services which are needed in my transportation business, and out of which suppose I have 10 services, 5 a seller agrees to pay, 5 buyer agrees to pay. So you'll come down with a common consensus and come down with this particular chart that okay, based upon international commercial terms, these are the things which has to be paid, and accordingly you'll come down with a common conclusion that out of 10, 5 you'll be paying, 5 I'll be paying, and that is how I'll come down with the conclusion that I'm going with FOB as one of the Incoterm. And that's the basic stuff that you would do. And most likely when you are going ahead within this direction, this is same information which gets propagated to all the downwards level. That means the moment it comes down to you, you always see that FOB is already written out over there, or you are always guided to maintain FOB only for your businesses. It is because it is already being pre-designed and pre-decided that what all amount of services a seller will be paying, what all amount of services buyer will be paying, because in case if any issues comes up, so that you have a proper documented Incoterm that it is being agreed, and we are working on this Incoterm basis only. So in case if any disputes arises, ICC can solve that particular dispute altogether. Okay, but usually it is pretty much mutually agreed, so it is all fine to proceed with that. Okay. Okay. Now, let's get into another kind of term. Now, talking about something called as full container load. Now, first of all, would like to understand your understanding on a term, something called as container. I hope you guys are pretty much aware when I say container, container means what, right? You guys understand what is container? Okay, so if for somebody's, when I say container, I'm particularly talking about containers like these which are used in your shipping context. Now you might see these shipping containers moving in across your roads on railways altogether, but ultimately they are being used for the ocean purpose and ocean transportation. These shipping containers are basically loaded onto shipping vessels like this. This is not a ship. This is a shipping vessel. On that shipping vessel, you have these large containers which are placed by these machines from the port location, and that is how, if you see this stack, there's one ship over here, another ship is lying behind this, and likewise these ships go basically on this ships on the sea. So all these basically are referred as shipping vessel. Shipping vessel contains multiple containers, and these containers contains goods. So when I say full container load, I am primarily talking about that container small box size of object which carries the entire volume being filled altogether. So when I say full container, I am talking about entire container is being filled with the goods. It is a full container load kind of a case. When I say it is LCL, that is less than container load, that means I am partially occupying the space in the container like 30, 40, 50 or 70%. Basically, it is not completely filled in that case. That you will be terming it as less than container load. Okay. Now, similar case happens to be in the form of truck. Now, in case if you're working for a road kind of a customer, that will be termed as less than truckload case. In case if it is called as LTL. In case if it is a completely filled truck, which is used in the road mode of transportation, that will be termed as full truckload case in that case. The only thing is, in ocean you have containers which are meant for transportation. In a road mode of transportation, you have some sort of trucks which are used for, most commonly trucks which are used for the common transportation, which is in case it is less than transport, in case if it is partially occupying the, if you are partially occupying the space, it is less than truckload case. If it is completely filled with the goods, it is full truckload case altogether. Okay, that is what I was about to come. Kamalpreet, that's very good that you asked altogether. So I was about to ask a similar question altogether. Let's take a very simple example to understand whatever exactly what you said. For example, when I say I'm transporting 1 ton, suppose, of iron, and when I say 1 ton of cotton, which is being transported. Now, when I say I'm transporting 1 ton of cotton and 1 ton of iron, which of the case I would say that it is more from the front of full container load or a less than container load, for example? Okay, Bhushan is saying LCL. How would you be able to understand? What is your reasoning behind that? By weight, okay. But weight is same for both of them. 1 ton of iron also, 1 ton of cotton also. So how would you come to know that probably this is going to uh, be a full container? My container also can go with only 1 tons of weight only. I have weight which is same. Container can only hold 1 ton. Next word. Very true. Sandeep is pretty much in the right direction. Okay. So when you talk about this example, for example, the cotton and the iron case, so definitely what exactly Vasana said, that space which will be occupied by iron will be less, at least in comparison to space which will be occupied by 1 ton of cotton. Definitely cotton will be occupying more space considering the volume that it carries. Iron will be occupying definitely less space, even though both of them, from weight point of view, both of them are 1 tons only. Okay, both of them are 1 ton. My container can also carry 1 ton, but can my container carry the volume that I'll be coming up with? That is the basic stuff. So the number one priority basically goes with the volumetric space, because volume you cannot increase altogether of this container. If I have this particular container, I cannot go beyond the space what is being there. Okay, so that's the reason volume is basically the most prior cases altogether. And definitely this mass definitely comes at second case, and probably that can be considered altogether. However, every container has their specific limitation on volume and weight as well, but still weight you can still vary, because you still have some variation that you can make sure. But space you cannot increase altogether if you have that limited space. So that's the reason volume is basically considered as one of the priority based object than weight altogether. Okay. Now over and above, it totally depends how you are proceeding with which kind of case and how you are going to go ahead with. I hope that is clear, Kamalpreet, right? Okay. Now coming down with another term called as drayage. Now drayage is basically is a trucking service that actually helps in moving the containers from one place to another place within a port location or nearby to the port location. Now this term would be more aligned from the perspective of a port location only, because you might have seen such kind of big dump yards or courtyards or altogether your shipping yards which are there, which carry the piles of containers altogether. Now there are different aspects. You might have to segregate these containers into some backyards. These containers would have to move across within the port location. Suppose they have to be sent across altogether today. Suppose these containers are supposed to be filled across, so I need to to rearrange the order altogether. So ultimately I have to take care of all the movements which are going up over in this place, and hence there needs to be an internal movement which needs to be planned altogether like this. I'll be moving the containers from one place to another place within the ports altogether, and hence you will be calling this entire service as a dry service. So dry service is nothing but is a trucking service which helps you in moving the containers from one place to another place within the port location, or sometimes to the nearby to the port locations. Okay, and that's the reason you would not see and hear about this term anything beyond port location, because most of the times if you are implementing TM for any port location, okay, then only you'll be hearing this particular term as drayage term. Otherwise, in case if any of the case that you talk about, you'll never be hearing this particular part, because this is something which comes then in that case as a internal arrangement altogether between the company. Okay. Okay, dryage movement is basically, okay, Sanjay is asking something. So dryage is something which is a trucking service which is happening within a port location primarily, because you need to move this containers one place to another place being as part of your movement. Whereas haulage is something which is a commercial transportation of the goods, as simple as that. Now it can be outside port, within port, except within port, whatever movement that you see, it is a generalized term for haulage, basically, if I would say. Okay, so most likely outside port location it is considered similar kind of movement. Okay, now there is also something called as ULD. Now you might have heard about container, which is used in ocean transportation. Similar manner, you have trucks, which is used in road-based transportation. For rail, you have rail cars, definitely. In the similar manner, there is also something which is called as ULD, which is used in air-based transportations. Because when you talk about air transportations, I cannot fit in this particular big container into an air cargo plane. This itself is very heavy. So what you have is, there is something called as ULD altogether. This ULD is basically looks like basically in this way. Maybe you might have seen these small boxes being loaded onto your air cargo planes nearby if you might have flown across by any of the airlines. So there might be some cargo planes which will be loaded with these small boxes. These small boxes are basically called as ULDs, unit load devices. These are of very small shapes and sizes altogether. And these are very lightweight material designed objects. Very lightweight materials. Okay, it is a very lightweight material designed object which is meant for the transportation, meant for the air transportation. And these are built based upon the aircraft design altogether. Because I cannot fit in any ULD in any aircraft also. And these these ULDs basically will be of height close to around 5 to 10 feet, depending upon what kind of ULD that you are transporting them. So if you see this is a smaller ULD size. This is 10 feet close to. So usually you will have 5 to 10 feet of size of height of this ULD that you will have, and it basically exactly fits in this particular aircraft. So every aircraft will have their own shape and sizes of ULDs, on the basis of which it will be transported. So Airbuses will have their own ULDs, types of ULDs. Jumbo jets will have their own, and different cargo planes have their, because it depends upon the aircraft's sizes. So depending upon that, you'll have your ULDs which are designed particularly meant for this particular definition. So in case if you're transporting any goods via air, in case if you'll be working in future with respect to air, you will be only be working in case of a ULD based transportation only, because that is something which you should be knowing. So just letting you know of that what all these terms that you should be knowing in case in if you're working all together in future. Okay. So that is all about all together. Yeah, cars are airlifted. So So you, other than this thing, you still have pallets which are there. I think you might have seen these images over here, which were more of like in this manner. So most likely you will have pallets which will be there to take care of that part. So in such cases, there's a specific rate, a specific discretion basically if you're importing a Ferrari or something like that. So you will have a specific pallet which will be having your car, and it would be packed somewhere like that. Not exactly like this, but yeah, somewhere it will be there on the pallet only. Document Mojid, I probably will talk about over this place itself. So the document that will be generated in the air case is same that we discussed. In case of air, it will be house airway bill. That is true. For that is what I have mentioned over in this last slide also. So if it is air, it will be same meaning, same stuff, but it will be referred as house airway bill and master airway bill.